Brave New World, Living the Dream, and now the final part of the trilogy, Voices in the Wilderness. As before, all the ideas have come from the students themselves, just been given a skeleton of a story, and out they've come with the big ideas.
Great atmosphere, all inclusive, really good from all the singers and the KCENT schools. Really well done.
It was really brilliant. I was so amazed at their singing. It was wonderful. I really enjoyed it.
I loved it. It was my first time here and I really loved it. I would do it again.
It's been absolutely brilliant.
It was wonderful for me to watch the script come to life. With professional support from choreographer Olivia Duggan, acting coach Hugh Blackwood and rapper Oliver Seeger, the children were able to let their imaginations run wild.
Initially, Martin and myself went into the schools. Then the teachers got a good understanding of it. In each school, in order for them to be confident enough to take part in the final part, the production, they had to do a lot of work, and they did a huge amount of work.
I'm pretty excited. I learned with Hannah Stevens.
When we are talking about special schools, they have a huge ability range. What we were very aware of is that in our previous project, we weren't able to include in the performance the kids who have profound and multiple learning disabilities. And we tried to find a way of including them in this project. The way we did it was with Soundbeam. And what it allowed us to do, we actually had some of these PMLD students taking an active and crucial part in the actual performance.
From your fingers to your toes.
The teachers have been helping the children with all the work, developing the drama, developing the music, and developing the extraordinary artwork that's gone into it and movement. And when it all comes together, it seems like a miracle. It all has to be put together in one day, all the parts of the jigsaw, and it was extraordinary.
Only this one harvest day, this one time, nothing was good and nothing whatever was fine.
I suppose my responsibility was making sure all the props were made for both performances. It's kind of liaising with the schools and helping them where they needed it, really. There were things like the pollution river, the Sasquatch puppet, the dragon lord, the bowler hat, the control box, all the kind of both fresh and mouldy fruit, vegetables, and the fish, robot masks, animal masks. There was a lot of props to make.
During the second part of this trilogy, which was a COVID experience, we trialed by necessity a way of rehearsing from remote locations. So I mapped out a stage, then just went through the piece scene by scene, staging it, and passed those on to the schools, and they got stuck in. There was room always for their spontaneous input, and it seemed by the end to have worked well as a process. Drawing a knife, threatening the Sasquatch creature. But then, from the ground floor level...
So, I'll pretend to be the creature, I'll come out. And then you've got those lines to say. Now, as Matthew said there...
What I hoped to try and provide was enough of a strong framework and then the license within that framework to follow whatever was going to arise in the classroom. There's a framework and yet there's freedom within it. And to not get too attached to a very controlled outcome, but to know that there's enough control in place so that people are feeling good and feeling safe. So I think throughout the process, certainly we had some incredible teachers holding it together and creating that framework in the classroom. We had Hannah liaising between all of these schools and giving that some framework.
I think some that had previously been in Living the Dream were incredibly excited. Straight away it was, are we going to see David again? Are we going to see Matthew and Martin again? I think the fact that the pupils could have the input at the very beginning of the process and create the story so it became their own was absolutely powerful, really.
Keep the chaos out.
A year when nets are full of fish.
A year when boats lost at sea.
In Canterbury, where we did the first performance, was intense, to say the least, and strikingly exhausting. There's always a time pressure. I mean, it seems that the only way to gather all of the schools in one place at one time means that it all has to happen over the course of a morning. And there is a lot to juggle. There is everyone feeling comfortable and having a good time for starters, and then the orchestra and the lights and the sound. It was crazily intense. I think we sort of found a way through, though we didn't actually run the show before the first performance. So that sense of spontaneity and carefreeness found its way into the performance itself.
I'm so sorry. Not to make the
It was interesting at Collier Ferguson, definitely challenging, I would say, because the space is quite restricted. So when you've got giant puppets that can't suddenly fit through a door, and sometimes pupils that aren't ready to be in those puppets, it presents its own challenges. But I think everybody remained incredibly calm on the day. Absolutely hats off to Matthew and David in particular. The way Matthew, David and Martin have made the process makes pupils feel so safe in it that they're just there, they're safe, and they're just absolutely loving it.
When you're watching the performance, because that's always the pinnacle, you're thinking, okay, is this costume going to stay together? Are they going to be able to use everything? And you know what? It was quite emotional. Complete and utter joy in performing. They just loved it. I loved watching them. There was like a real sense of pride in that, you know, there's one young man from Highfield School who was desperate to be the Sasquatch right from the very start. So we made this costume just for him. So it fitted him, you know, a bespoke costume, basically.
When I met Sasquatch for the first time in Canterbury, that was a real thrill, because Sasquatch was enormous and fantastic and larger and bolder and more out there than I could have possibly imagined. So that was a great moment of surprise.
A lot of my practice is around collaboration and co-production. And that's really, really important, because if we want children and young people to kind of get a sense of belonging and that sense of pride, the only way you can really do that is by having those discussions about what's the Sassel going to look like then. Let's look at the photos. Let's vote for the lovely drawings that you've made. Which one do we think? You know, in the end, the Sassel doesn't look anything like the drawing, but it doesn't matter, because they've had their voice heard, and their voices are so important. They're crucial, I think, to this kind of work that we're doing.
I'm not filming anything now.
The sound beam is a really good tool, and the response from those pupils was just absolutely amazing. They were so happy. You could see that they were registering that they were part of something with their peers. It was amazing. And on the performance itself, I'd say I ended up still sitting with the PMLD group, and honestly, it was just, for me, that was probably one of the most magical bits of the process, just seeing them smiling. And these are pupils that you look back when they're younger thinking they're never going to perform in a theatre with a group, but actually that's what we made happen. And it was, incredible.
What we were wondering was, would the students actually press it when we wanted them to, or would they do it in their own time? Well, in the end, it was a mixture of the two, and the sound was just magical.
So for the exhibition, obviously the schools did beautiful drawings for the book. I tried as much as possible to have a range of different images from the different schools, so that obviously when parents come along, they could kind of celebrate their work. So the exhibition is really important, I think. Yes, the performance, of course, is always the lead, takes the lead, but I think it's really important for people to understand the amount of work that goes into creating that performance, and for them to understand that actually the children and young people had made all the props, you know, including costume.
I'm always bowled over by the above and beyond and the going the extra mile reality of what the teachers bring to the project.
I definitely find that you get a lot more engagement from pupils when they are creating the material themselves. And so definitely in the next few years, I will be using that.
Clear and in control! And around Stoke City, the robot army built a wall.
I didn't know what to expect, but it shows that for what we may see as a disability, is not a disability to them, it's normal.
I thought the performance was quite remarkable. Children who sometimes are shy were brought together, they were enjoying themselves, their confidence increased, and they were just amazing, absolutely amazing.
We were just blown away with how the production all come together and how Zara and all the other children were building their confidence to sing and perform, and it was very emotional actually by the end of it. I was very touched seeing all the
It's absolutely amazing. I love it.
I love it. I'd want to do it again.
Best thing I've ever done in my life.
Definitely great, I loved it.
So we've come to the end. They've got something to remember it by, which is this book, which has got illustrations, again created by all the young people involved in the show. And if they want a fourth part, which one lad said he did, they've got everything they need, the creativity, the experience to do it themselves. And that's the best result.